Imagine living with the absolute conviction that your deepest secrets were secure for 30 years, only to discover they had been exposed all along. For the German High Command, confidence in the Enigma cipher was absolute until 1974, when that certainty was shattered. The revelation involved a suspicious diary entry from an admiral, a letter penned in shock, and a fatal miscalculation by cryptographers. What these officers said upon learning the truth forever altered our understanding of history. For years, the Third Reich possessed a weapon that was neither a firearm nor an explosive device. It was a machine. To the untrained eye, the Enigma machine resembled a standard typewriter, but its function was far more formidable. It transformed ordinary communication into scrambled code that appeared utterly indecipherable. German officers viewed this device as an impenetrable shield. Every military directive, every strategic battle plan, and the precise coordinates of every submarine were safeguarded by Enigma's labyrinthine system. The machine contained a series of rotating internal wheels, capable of altering the cipher billions of times. German commanders rested easy at night, secure in the knowledge that their enemies could not possibly unravel it. They transmitted thousands of messages daily, confident that even if the Allies intercepted the signals, the content would remain meaningless, gibberish forever. This was not merely confidence, it was absolute certainty. Their most brilliant mathematicians had verified the probabilities, concluding that breaking Enigma would require more time than a single human lifetime afforded. Or so they believed. However, they were oblivious to what was transpiring at a clandestine location in England. This was the secret war they never suspected. While German officers typed their classified dispatches with implicit trust, an extraordinary effort was underway in the English countryside. At an estate known as Bletchley Park, thousands of the sharpest minds toiled day and night with a singular objective: to break Enigma. Mathematicians, chess grandmasters, linguists, and even experts in crossword puzzles were assembled in secrecy. They constructed massive, complex machines designed to test millions of potential code combinations. Every day, the Allies intercepted German transmissions from the airwaves, and every day they deciphered them. The Allied forces knew exactly where German U-boats were lurking. They knew precisely when attacks were scheduled. They could read Adolf Hitler's direct orders almost as quickly as his own generals received them. Yet, the most incredible aspect of this operation was the silence. The Germans never discovered the breach, not throughout the entire conflict. Not when they lost engagements, they were statistically favored to win, and not even when the war concluded in 1945. The secret remained locked away, buried deep within classified government archives. For nearly 30 years, not a whisper of the operation leaked, until one day in 1974, the day the secret broke. In that year, a book appeared in British shops that would stun the world. Titled The Ultra Secret and written by a former Royal Air Force officer, it revealed the truth to the public for the first time. The Allies had been reading German codes throughout the entirety of the war. Newspapers erupted with the story, and historians scrambled to rewrite the narrative of World War II. However, the people most devastated by this revelation were not historians or journalists. They were the aging German officers who had entrusted their lives to Enigma. These men, now in their 60s and 70s, suddenly realized their flawless machine had failed them completely. Everything they believed about the conflict had to be re-examined. Every lost battle, every sunken submarine, every failed offensive, could it all have been because the enemy was reading their mail? The psychological impact was catastrophic. Imagine realizing 3 decades later that your most guarded secret was never a secret at all. One man's reaction stood out above all others, captured in an admiral's diary entry. Grand Admiral Karl Donitz commanded Germany's deadly U-boat fleet during the war. His submarines hunted Allied shipping across the Atlantic Ocean, but a nagging suspicion plagued him throughout the conflict. Far too often, his submarines sailed into positions where enemy destroyers were already waiting. Too many times, his meticulously laid plans seemed to disintegrate. In November 1941, Donitz wrote something troubling in his private war diary. He suspected the British might be intercepting and reading their radio messages. It seemed the only logical explanation. He took his concerns to the experts, Germany's top cryptographic specialists, and the naval war staff. They investigated his theory with rigor. They ran the mathematics. They audited the Enigma system. Their conclusion was absolute. Impossible. Breaking Enigma was out of the question, they assured him. The Admiral was forced to accept their verdict. He pushed his doubts aside and continued to trust the machine. But those doubts never completely vanished. When the truth finally emerged in 1974, Donitz had something to say. Upon learning about Ultra in 1974, the elderly Admiral Donitz picked up his pen. He wrote a letter that revealed his complicated emotions. In it, he admitted what he had suspected all along, that something was fundamentally wrong during the war. He had felt it in his gut. The patterns were too consistent, the Allied responses too perfect. But what frustrated him most was that he had been overruled by the experts. The cryptographers, the mathematicians, the technical specialists, they all insisted breaking Enigma was mathematically impossible. What could a naval admiral do against such scientific certainty? He was not a code expert. He commanded ships and submarines, not mathematical equations. Consequently, he deferred to their expertise, even though his instincts screamed otherwise. Now, nearly 30 years later, his worst fears were confirmed. His suspicions had been correct, but the confirmation brought no satisfaction, only the bitter realization that thousands of his men might have survived if someone had listened. But why were those experts so wrong? The answer lies in a fatal miscalculation. The German code experts were not incompetent. They were brilliant mathematicians who understood Enigma's complexity perfectly. They had calculated that breaking the code would require checking billions of possible combinations. If a team of codebreakers worked full-time, it would theoretically take several lifetimes to crack even a single message. Their math was correct. Their logic was sound, but they made one catastrophic assumption. They assumed the enemy would approach the problem the exact same way they would. They never imagined the sheer scale of what the Allies would attempt. The Germans failed to predict that Britain would gather thousands of their brightest minds in a single location. They could not foresee the massive electromechanical computers built specifically to test millions of combinations automatically. They underestimated human determination. The German experts looked at Enigma and saw an impossible puzzle. The British looked at the same puzzle and said, "We will build a machine to solve it." That difference in mindset cost Germany the war. The consequences of this miscalculation were staggering. When the full picture emerged in 1974, historians began recalculating the war's timeline. How many battles were won because of Ultra? How many lives were saved? The estimates were shocking. The code-breaking efforts might have shortened the war by 2 to 4 years. That meant millions of lives were saved. For the German officers learning this truth, the revelation was deeply personal. Some felt betrayed by their own experts. Others experienced profound sadness thinking about the men lost unnecessarily. A few insisted they had suspected it all along, though their wartime actions suggested otherwise. The younger generation of Germans had different reactions. Many felt a sense of relief that their fathers and grandfathers had faced an impossible situation. Losing wasn't about German failure, but Allied brilliance. The story reshaped how the world understood World War II. It proved that wars are not won solely on battlefields with guns and tanks. Sometimes, the real victory happens in quiet rooms where brilliant minds solve impossible puzzles. But one question remained unanswered, a lesson that changed everything. Could it happen again? That is the question military leaders worldwide asked after learning about Enigma's fall. The answer changed how countries approach secret communications forever. Today's encryption systems are tested not by assuming they are unbreakable, but by assuming the enemy will throw unlimited resources at breaking them. Modern cryptographers learn from Germany's mistake. Never underestimate what a determined opponent will attempt. The Enigma story teaches us something profound about human nature. We trust systems that look complicated. We believe experts who sound certain. We assume our secrets are safe because we want them to be safe. But the German officers who spoke out in 1974 left us with a warning. Question everything, especially when everything seems perfect. Their machine was not unbreakable. Their experts were not infallible. And their confidence became their greatest vulnerability. In the end, what German officers said when they learned the truth wasn't just about codes and machines. It was about the danger of absolute certainty. Sometimes the strongest fortress has the weakest foundation. The moment the German High Command discovered the compromise of their Enigma system remains one of history's most dramatic revelations. These first-person accounts from military leaders demonstrate how the secret revealed in 1974 shattered decades of confidence. When the story of the broken code finally emerged, it wasn't just about cryptography. It was about trust, miscalculation, and the human cost of technological overconfidence. The response from aging officers ranged from shock to vindication, forever changing our understanding of the war. Their words remind us that in warfare, your greatest strength can become your deadliest weakness. Question everything. Trust nothing completely.